At the end of winter, in March 2020, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker ordered all non-essential businesses to close and asked citizens to stay home and shelter in place. Artists on Cape Cod are accustomed to long, lonely winters, creating an isolation. However, this was different because people were being told to stay home, to stay safe and healthy, out of harm's way, away from a severely contagious disease, COVID-19.
3 members of my family have had it. 2 have died.
Oh my God.
You have a 3?
It's pretty depressing.
Devastating.
Yeah.
Well, I had it in February, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
You had it?
I had it. I didn't know that's what it was until afterward because it was just kind of coming around. But I thought I had the flu, but it was a horrible flu, and more than the flu. And now I have a chronic cough and shortness of breath.
Wow.
That seems to be followed, a follow-up to that. So.
Early March when I went to the International Antiquarian Book Fair, and I'm pretty sure that's where I got COVID. And I had COVID very early on in March. Well, it wasn't as scary as it could have been, even though it was so early in the pandemic, because I didn't think I had it, because my symptoms were not exactly as they were saying at the time. My cough was not a dry cough, and I didn't think I had it. I thought I just had a flu. So by the time I found out that I had it, because it took a little while to get tested and get the results, I was already feeling better. So for me, it was like a flu. I just thought it was ironic that I got it because I love books. I went to this international event in the city, which was probably one of the last big events held before everything shut down.
With the health risks causing artists to continue to create in isolation, they found new ways to communicate and express their art online.
Can anyone hear? Comment below if you can hear me. Okay, awesome, perfect. All right, so I'll try and play loud. I tried to connect a microphone because I play quite quietly because I don't use a pick, but we'll try and I hope you can hear. So thank you for everyone who's tuned in again. Thanks for sticking with me. So I am here, as you know, to help and support local artists from all over the Cape. I'm proud to be one of them.
I've been grateful to be asked to do a good amount of online shows for different venues. And that has been the way that I've been reaching out, as well as doing Instagram Live and Facebook Live when I can. And that's the way, of course, that we all have to do things right now. I think for me, I do feel a bit of a loss with the performance piece because that's, I think, where the power of music comes in. I'm a bit disappointed and sad. I had many performances scheduled, especially earlier this year and for my college's graduation, and that's a really beautiful event that I've always been a part of. So I definitely feel a loss with that, but I'm happy that people are stepping in and offering opportunities for artists like me to try and interact. And I'm noticing that the community and my audience is really trying to give back too online and really supporting and coming on and commenting and even donating if it's a fundraiser. So
deep down, yeah, I'm just like you, and all I really want to do is roll. But gypsy, there's a couple roads that never lead back home.
I think the hardest thing is you can't really hear anyone, any feedback. At least when we're, in Zoom, I can at least hear what you're responding to me. But when I'm live, I can't hear anything. And it feels like I'm just singing in an empty room to myself.
it's interesting that the performance has in front of live people has just dropped off completely. So there are ways around that, but you're not in person. And I really think musicians as a whole thrive on that. And you look for the reaction in the audience, and you want to see people's eyes and see if they're playing, see if they're grooving to what you're laying down. And if you don't have that, it's definitely disappointing. And I think for me, what I really want to do is work as hard as I can to try to improve myself, take this opportunity to do that.
While performance artists grappled with new ways to reach out to their audiences, literary and visual artists were able to use this time in isolation to create more and reflect upon what was happening in the world.
As a writer, I think most of us are finding this not that different in some ways from our usual life. I mean, my greatest joy, to be honest, is to just sit in a room and write. And that's pretty much what one is confined to doing here.
This is, like I tell people, it's like a vacation for introverts. We don't have to deal with the rest of the world. We're not expected to go anywhere and deal with people and so on. I get to have a lot of time in my studio that's uninterrupted, which is very hard to get in normal life. So in a way, it's good for me.
Most of us, work kind of solitary anyway. And so for me, I've been continuing on with what I normally do, and I've been on doing a series of stones, and I think you can see it on the easel in the back here. It's not all that close, but yeah, it gets a little closer. I've been working on this piece, which is a series of stones underwater, and it's coming along. It takes a long time to do these things. I've been enjoying capturing the bubbles, because each bubble has its own little landscape inside of it, and this one has particularly large, really huge bubbles and big rocks, and I like to look at the grains in the rocks and the way the water flows around everything and the reflections, and kind of brings me back into that sort of intimate space with the ocean and the land.
I started several paintings before any of this happened, and just so coincidentally they kind of fit. So behind me there's a painting I have been working on. It's actually of my wife at Cafe Heaven in Provincetown. So, and this was started before the whole coronavirus thing started, but just so happened, we like to go to places like this when the places aren't very crowded, and she will pose for me and I'll work on a painting, and it's not about sadness and isolation as much as it is about having a space to yourself, quiet time. I was thinking maybe calling it day off or something like that. That it's just, be able to sit and, have a cup of coffee and just relax. So yeah, that happened to be going on, but then it just happens to work out perfectly with the whole idea that people are kind of being by themselves these days. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
The work itself, I have not really intentionally thought about any changes. I don't really see anything necessarily happening at this point, but it might. I did make one painting. I was sort of fooling around with photography, and I had a camera that was automatically taking pictures of me while I was doing some indoor gardening. I really liked the images, so I made one called Isolation Garden. It's really a self-portrait in a way, but there's this person tending these tiny little plants with this huge window to the outside behind him or her, and it's intentionally kind of ambiguous. And it just kind of has a feeling, that definitely was about this isolation problem and having to tend your own gardens and try to develop, it's almost like a survivalist feeling. So, but I also like the idea of this person tending these little plants, and then there's this vast outside trying to come in, kind of glowing through that window. So I guess that's the only one at this point that I would say has been directly affected by the virus. So I may try to do some just really abstract paintings. And I know when I've done this in the past, I rarely make an abstract painting, just purely abstract. And when I try to do it, oftentimes it comes out looking like some sort of urban dystopia. And then things often look like they're on fire, because I love having these glowing backgrounds. I didn't really want to do urban dystopias previously, but under these conditions, I'm starting to feel like I can feel its relevance, and maybe I'll just let it happen.
I just started sticking my hand in my paint, you know, like a kid, and just like, like all this. And then I realized it's like I'm trying to say stop to the virus, stop, and stop the numbers, counting these numbers of victims, and it just went, so that came out on that one. It's called Stop. But we can't stop. We have to move forward with this and get through this and think about the other side and what it's going to be like. And it's not going to be the same. And I think things that affect you in life make you, change the artist. So I've had a lot of things in the last 2 years, and then this compounded everything. And it's wonderful to just kind of have a place to vent. I feel like I'm very grateful as an artist to have this outlet. And I at first I was really kind of in shock by everything that was happening. I think everybody was, and I almost couldn't paint. And I said, okay, I'm going to the studio and I'm going to do this self-portrait, which I normally don't do. But I felt like I'm so, confined, isolated on my own. I'm like, I'm going to do, a self-portrait. And it came out, kind of strange, because I'm used to bright colors, happy things. I like painting in bright colors. And that's one of the biggest things I think people have noticed. I post on Facebook and they're like, whoa, where's your bright, happy? Some of them are still happy, but there's a lot going on that's, I'm trying to get out these feelings, and it's very cathartic, it's very emotional, and it's good, and it's making me paint better.
I think for me, what's changing is the content. I feel like there's something that is so important going on out there that I should be writing really important things. And that adds a certain, layer onto everything I do, because my primary work is mysteries, murder mysteries. And I like writing them because I do think that having a death in the story ups the ante in terms of someone's emotional involvement with it. But it's also very difficult in a time when people that we know are going to be dying very soon to say, okay, I'm going to be flippant and do these really cute little mysteries where we never actually see blood, or we never actually see violence, we never actually see pain. We just sort of get that drawing room, well, you may wonder why I gathered here, you here today, to solve it, to make it a puzzle. And I think a time like this reminds you that it's not just a puzzle, it's people's lives. So I find that changed the way I'm viewing what I'm doing.
It looks to me like what you have here is a lot of people who are grouped together, and they aren't social distancing.
No, they aren't. And that's very interesting that you say that, because this painting I started with I just transferred a bunch of drawings, a lot of these charcoal sketches, and I transferred those right onto the paper, and they were all kind of masked in the middle, but then I started drawing, expanding on it. I wasn't really trying to paint those drawings exactly. I just wanted something to put up onto the canvas and respond to.
The way some of the faces are melting too, it almost makes me think of the plague.
Well, I don't, as I always say, I don't consciously try to illustrate anything, but whatever is in my head subconsciously is gonna show up here, no matter what. And the part of using the acrylic paints as my underpainting is I use a very liquid form of them, and so they do a lot of this running and dripping, which is part of the connection to my encaustic painting, which had a lot of melting wax that was running and dripping. So that's why, yes, it does look like they're melting in there. Maybe not. Yeah, there's something going on there.
I love the starts, this abstract and expressionist school, the New York school, where they just, it's like whatever comes out of you is there. So those trees you see right there, I felt like I just started going like this, and I'm like, yeah, we're in the woods. We're in the woods now. We got to get out of the woods. There's light behind, but right now we are in the woods. We're not out of the woods. Maybe that's the title. We're not out of the woods yet, and don't think we are. This is going to take time. So that came out, and then the one of New York. It wasn't meant to be New York, but it just came out. That was this bright, happy yellow and purple painting of daffodils, and it was like, I'm not happy. I'm not, I'm just. So I started mixing the colors, and the purple and the yellow made this nice, rich, kind of brownish, purpley. It just came out of New York. So then this down here on the bottom there's Boston, because they're like, oh, they're going to be peaking. And I'm like, I started to paint Boston, which is in a way more familiar to me. I've lived there, and it's heart-wrenching because it's like we're waiting for, tick, 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 more people. It's unbelievable. But I don't want to lose kind of what I'm going through, in a sense, as much as it's sad, and it's like you grow through these times when your heart is broken a little and it heals, and then you have a bigger heart, and it helps you in this strange way.
It's just such a challenge to think about what difference can I make not in the world, because it's just too big a thing to take on right now, but in these little circles where I've got the Facebook circle, and I've got, the library people, I've got people who are friends of mine in different ways, to listen to them and think, what is it that I can hear, that I can help them process with, and that I can contribute to somehow.
I try not to keep track of how many weeks now, but it's like trying to keep track of what day it is. So I've been weaving a lot at home. The gallery's been closed since mid-March. Things were shut down. They started to go south. Nobody's been working in the gallery in Brewster. I go there and water the plants every other day. But at home, I've got these two very large looms. This loom here I've been working on a commissioned piece that I finished and was able to ship out. Fortunately, UPS is still shipping, so I can wrap the package up and send it off to the customer. And actually, I'm waiting for another piece to be delivered to a customer in Pennsylvania today. So weaving is a perfect isolation project because you just sit there and you work away at it. And the cold, inclement weather that we had in April and March was great because I stayed inside and listened to books on tape and work away. And I've been sharing a lot on social media, either Instagram or Facebook, of what I've been making. When I finish a project, I put it out there. I change my website up. I try to, shake the bush every once in a while to see if anybody's paying attention.
It's tough, though, working at home for an organization that usually is characterized by a lot of people getting together in one place. So, but we're all still working. We've been fortunate that we had a rainy day fund that so far has been equal to this really rainy day. So we've kept our staff on, and we're all working from home, reinventing ourselves as quickly as we can to stay relevant. But it's a lot of work to learn all the tech. We're Zooming right now. I had never heard of Zoom before a month ago, never even heard of it. And now I do it every day. And so we're all learning this new technology and these new habits. But so far, the artists are loving it. We think we're going to have an international audience, and we'll build this whole archive of great classes people can subscribe to. And, so we have a plan, and we're going to execute it and see where it goes.
In June 2020, as restrictions started to be eased, artists and gallery owners took the Provincetown Gallery Stroll online, creating a virtual exhibition space and also roadmap to commercial street galleries.
So the stroll started from the galleries coming together because, of course, like there's a looming threat, and like we're all small businesses, we're all creative people. How do we band down together to try to see if we can be stronger together? P-Town is incredibly strong door-to-door, brick and mortar, but there are some galleries that are suffering. They were not prepared to have the doors closed for months. On Friday night, you can count that this website is going to tell you what's happening all over P-Town. It's creating an expectation and an interest that is helping us to basically create something that will last for a longer time, and would help galleries at large, crisis or not. There's a lot of tourists that come, say a tourist comes in June, loves my work, buys a piece, then goes back to his city, and he won't come to P-Town till next summer. The gallery stroll is going to be in front of his eyes in July, in August, in September, and that will favor the fact that he might get to know that there's a new piece that I put out in September that he would not have known without the stroll. So the stroll has this value of basically creating an accessible connection with the art of P-Town for people that might not be here right now.
It's been really, really great. To have this kind of collective, supportive group of galleries coming together during this time when there was so much uncertainty about what was going to happen, were we going to open, how we could have more of an online presence, and sort of taking that step towards realizing that the way we're all engaging now is kind of more virtual anyway, but feels very human at the same time. So it's actually been, aside from being really lovely connecting with all these other gallerists that many of whom I know, some who I didn't know, it's been kind of a nice personal leap to reimagine how the gallery might grow and evolve in a COVID world, and also going forward.
Because obviously early on, who knew if we would have a season? I don't think people really recognize when you have a seasonal business. My clock begins in May and it ends May 1st to November 1st. My business, my store is not equipped for winter selling. Even if I wanted to, I cannot legally be here. So I knew the clock was ticking, and it was very anxiety-ridden. And so once we were able to open June 8th, I came down on weekends and started there, but it really did feel like, what will it be like on a Friday night, for example? How will people who come in town really be able to experience the full breadth of the variety of art that we provide here in town? And so the gallery stroll, I think, has really found that way to bring that diversity to people. I mean, people are great. The town is great. It's done a great job of keeping mask use enforced. I feel safe. I'm the only employee. I'm a one-woman band, so to speak, so I work 7 days a week. I'm the only person here, and I've never felt unsafe. I've never felt like somebody, didn't listen when I asked them to put a mask on. If they forget, it's purely because they parked their car and came in and forgot. So I feel safe, I feel respected, I feel like people are trying to support the business.
The large majority of people are incredibly respectful, very mindful. It's very beautiful, actually. You see people making space for each other, maneuvering around each other. I get, most of the time, ask me like, is that okay if I come in? Which is a tiny little thing to ask, but it's a very beautiful way to signal to another person that I want to see something, but I don't want to step on your toes.
It wasn't our plan to open during the pandemic, but it was actually a blessing in disguise because the Commons had vacant storefronts, probably because of COVID. People are coming in the store, people are, supporting us, but we do have restrictions, so we have limitations on the amount of people that can come in at once, so about 6 people at once, and then everybody has to wear their mask and, honor social distancing. So the work that's here is both from Mashpee Wampanoag tribal community members as well as different tribal artisans from all over the country. People are so excited that we're here. They're curious to come in to see what Wampanoag art is, as well as just what we have. Usually we have the Mashpee Wampanoag powwow every year for July 4th weekend, but that didn't happen because of COVID. So people who were tourists and visitors, they were planning to come to the powwow, and we're disappointed that it wasn't happening. So they're happy that this is here instead. And we're not a pop-up, we hope to be here long term. So whether the powwow goes on or not, which we hope it will, we'll still have this store here that can cater to pretty much anyone at any time.
It's been a really, I feel, good response, both from locals and from people that are seasonal or just tourists that are coming through. They really like seeing this. So I feel like what we're showing here is art for art's sake, but it's also a little bit of history, and people can learn something from coming in here.
Looking to reestablish a sense of community, artists gathered outdoors to exhibit their works together in socially distanced gatherings.
This piece is a collaboration with my children and navigating remote learning with them. We're going to paint together.
My name is Joe Diggs, and along with Jackie Reeves, we were the ones who created the Baldwin Barn here. Jaden Munsell gave us the opportunity to come and just said, Joe, whatever you want to do, help yourself, 20 by 10. So we came up with the idea, and then we came out and we painted it in about 3 days. And it's been a wonderful experience. It's been nice to be able to put my thoughts out to the Barnstable Village, and it's been received pretty nicely, and we're moving things forward.
There were a number of people that weren't too thrilled with the project, but we felt it was necessary. That I think the consciousness of the nation was changing, especially after George Floyd was killed. We just felt compelled to do something, and as a family, we decided on this project and to get hold of Joe and give him a canvas, what he's going to do. What can you do?
This painting is called Killing Emmett Till again, and it's a painting that I began about 4 years ago when yet another black person was killed by the police, and I forget which one. There's been so many, but that prompted me to begin the picture. And so 4 years ago, I painted it fairly quickly, but all I had was the policeman on the horse. And for me, the policeman with the badge and the hat that cast a shadow over his face represented this authority. And the horse represented the strength that his office gave him. And I had in my heart, I felt what I wanted to say, but I wasn't quite sure how to finish it until Floyd got killed. And when that happened, it became clear to me that I needed to make a reference to lynching, to say that from history up until today, it never really ended. It simply took a different form. I painted this image because I'm trying to figure out how to explain to my son that as he gets older, he's going to realize that being black is a problem for a lot of people, and you wonder if he's going to rise above it or whether it's going to damage his psyche to the point where he thinks he's inferior, even if he never really comes out and says it, but he behaves that way. If you keep telling somebody this is who you are, at some point, there's a risk they will become that person. How do I fix that? How do I get around this? And it occurs to you that you don't know. I don't know. So I begin to paint, I paint him in situations that allow me to think through how to deal with it. And just the daily domestic rituals of looking after a kid. No, it wasn't that anymore. It was about what's going to happen to those kids as they grew older. So the work itself exists not as an intended final product, but as a conduit for me to talk myself to this. And that discussion doesn't end, So when the pandemic happened, it really highlighted for me the difficulty of that role, but it became so much harder for people who were not in a position It's like, how do you get anything done? I know how difficult it is to manage two small children, you know, and my son as well, who is now at home. You know, my wife is working full time in the house. She worked in the house before the pandemic. So that didn't, from an economic perspective, nothing changed for us. From an emotional perspective, it was very difficult. So that's dominated my thinking. It highlights this economic structure, social structure that we have, where the focus is almost entirely on your ability to make money, because it's the only way you're going to survive. There is nothing else. The state will not look after you, you know. You can't afford insurance. You can't afford to have children. If you do have children, you have to make a difficult choice between working and looking after the kid.
As the weather got colder and people moved back indoors, coronavirus cases increased, and again, artists needed to find new ways to express their art safely.
Before pandemic times, I was playing with Rhode Island Philharmonic, Portland Symphony, Boston Landmarks, and the Cape Symphony. The pandemic has made at least all of us players like just really appreciate when we get to come together. And obviously we can't do that right now. And so my colleagues and friends and I have been like, you know, trying to keep each other motivated. And as it got nice out, we started playing for each other outside. And we noticed lots of neighbors would be on the porch and just listening. And my friends and I have been like kind of exploring this idea of creating some sort of concert series, like incorporating the nature and getting to connect in some way. And we were able to go out onto the low tide and play, and it was like the most amazing experience ever. We decided that we wanted to create a whole concert series, and I love the idea of like connecting it to nature and so to the seasons. I think this time, especially right now, can feel extremely isolating, especially since with the colder weather and all that stuff. So that's the idea, is that it's to also just really promote connection and support during that isolating time. And to me, that's what this is all about. It's not really just like me showing up and playing for you. It's like really connecting and sharing common themes. I mean, we're all going through this crazy time together. And I think it's actually where the arts are needed the most. You know, music, although we're not considered essential, like is essential. The arts are essential. And I think people are really needing it and craving it now.
Oh God, how exhausting to appear as if everything is fine. Everything is not fine. Nothing is fine.
It was such an important opportunity for theater artists to be able to get off the couch and come together even in this COVID-safe remote way. And I thought we couldn't let 2020 go by without addressing it. And it seemed the perfect follow-up in terms of the monologue series to that, because we all had these personal as well as universal experiences with COVID over the last 12 months. And I thought it would be really key to be able to create a sort of time capsule that we could look back on 10 and 20 years from now and just see where people were at for those 12 months.
On the other end of the train, this woman starts coughing, like really hacking up a lung, coughing. Oh God, and the whole train just got quiet.
Most of the pieces I find really did take a personal approach to COVID as opposed to a sort of larger survey of the pandemic and demographics and the science and the politics and all that. And people have really clearly, the writers, we have 12 incredible writers. I'm so proud of our writers and our performing artists, but who took it to heart and really, you know, related their own experience of what was going on with them or family or friends, and what they had picked up also from accounts in the news for those months. And you get to see how the pandemic did have this curve. You know, there's a graph involved in it. And so I think we're hopefully having a nice testimony of what really brought us all together under horrific circumstances.
I'm terrified and worried sick that this pandemic is far from over. I'm sure there are little cartoon faces that go with these feelings, but I don't know what they are.
When COVID first started, we were so used to meeting on Wednesday nights that we just started to meet on Wednesday nights just to talk and have a cocktail. The people who usually got together to paint. Somewhere along the lines, I decided maybe we could connect with a model. So we tried it just for fun, and it worked out pretty well. So I decided we could probably get a couple people in the studio and have the model right here, and I could set up the different cameras.
I'm grateful to have something to do during this pandemic that I love so much.
Well, the thing about artists is that we're used to working home alone.
Yeah.
And this is one way to get together. It's not something we probably otherwise would have thought to do, and if we ever go back to normal, if I had 15 people or 16 people in the studio, might have to make room for a couple of cameras so people can still join us.
I started this about 6 months ago, my sort of pandemic betterment scenario, learning how to look and see. Now with the way we're all living, there are differences in our lives, but there are new opportunities too. I knew about Paul Schulenberg's Wednesday evening sessions for years, just from other friends in the arts. I never even considered going. It was like, I'm an amateur with this kind of thing. And I'd sit there in the studio with all these professional artists. That doesn't seem right. But now that it's on Zoom and it's a big group and they're from all over the country and all over the world, it seemed like a great opportunity. So as soon as I heard about it, I signed on. A lot of times in drawing classes, and I'm taking an online drawing class as well from the Art Students League of New York. Another opportunity. When the pandemic started, they went to having their classes via Zoom, which means you don't have to be in New York to take an Art Students League of New York class.
I feel like there must be such a surge of creativity in the country because we all have more time right now for our well, not all of us, but those of us who have the, privilege of that have more time to be creative.
Well, that's an interesting question too, is half the people I talk to say they're absolutely paralyzed by everything going on in the world and they haven't been able to be creative. And the other half, and thank God I'm in the other half, are more creative than ever. Have you been hearing of that disparity?
Well, I've gone through both sides of it personally. I've been more creative, and then in the last couple of months, less creative. So I don't know, maybe it's been too long that we've been closed in. I don't know. And I need some new input. I don't know, but I've been through both sides of that. I like the more creative part better.
We're sensitive to everything that's going on. And so now I'm, because of Corona, it's kind of got me a little bit more introspective, and it's actually got me to appreciate my history a lot more. I've always appreciated the history, realizing that how really truly special this history that I have here is. I never thought I'd ever be that kind of a painter. Hopper, I love Hopper, but that's not Joe Diggs. I was never thinking I'd ever paint a building and in any kind of like a romantic way, or even in the way that I've been doing the demise of Joe's and how it's fallen apart and how it just rips me apart personally. I never thought that would be the truth, but now here I am. So that is what this has done for me. It's got me really to understand, you need to take care of your house. You need to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, what you're all about will never be seen, because it will just get run over by all the problems that we have in our society right now.
I often say with students who take workshops with me that my work starts with a feeling, and that my hope is that I'm conveying what I feel about this place and my devotion to this place to people who encounter my work. What's kind of surprising is how much I love teaching painting workshops on Zoom. This has opened up a whole other world for me. I certainly like working with people in a studio setting and teaching in that way. But ironically, by teaching on Zoom, I can actually have more individualized experiences with people and go deeper with them. And I think be more useful to them as a resource in the particular. When I do one-to-one conversations on Zoom, people can talk to me about what their aspirations, their fears, their sense of searching for something as an artist without having to worry about being overheard or talked over. For me, that's a real benefit too, because I get to be in conversation with these really interesting people all over the continent.
I had never painted portraits before. The most recent was a woman who facilitates a nursing home. 28 of the 30 residents have had COVID. And so she's facilitated and she's kept, I think, almost all of them out of the hospital. And I wanted it to be a cross section of all different talents. That was a nomination for a radio station. The individual that nominated them said he did so because they kept normalcy on the Cape during the pandemic. And so that was their unit at the radio station. She works at Ring Brothers and has taken over being in charge of home delivery. There were approximately 5 home deliveries per week before the pandemic. And then following the pandemic, they do 40 to 60 a day now. There were people that had just done everyday jobs throughout the pandemic and exposed their own health at the same time. I felt it was selfless.
As artists move forward beyond the pandemic, the question is, what happens next?
I think as far as looking forward, we're most looking forward to feeling it's safe for our artists from France and Canada to come over, even from Rhode Island. It'd be nice to see Jonathan Phillips back,
And I think having people flooding in our doors when this is over, and maybe that's the thing, whether they value it to the point where they are so grateful to have it back, that they don't take it for granted ever again. And
I think there's a pent-up demand for live performances that I think you're right. As soon as you can open your doors, the rest will be easy, I think, relatively.
Yeah, I think that's true both for the audience and for the performers. I mean, a lot of the musicians I have been working with they just can't wait to have a live audience in front of them again.
I can certainly second that as I play with the Digny Fignus band, but I've talked to a lot of musicians and they're just dying to get out there and express their art.
I think we all want to get back to some semblance of normal human interaction. I don't know that we want to all necessarily go back to the world exactly as it was. My hope is that some of the connectedness that digital communication has allowed will continue. And at the same time, I would like to be able to touch other human beings again.
Definitely looking forward to not having to say to the children, sorry, we can't do that because the jammies are still there. And I've said it so many times that they don't even ask anymore. Or if they'll look at me and go, oh, the jammies are still there. I'll say, yeah. So yeah, I'd love to get back to that. I think more than anything else, to not have to tell them they can't. Just simple things. Dad, can we go to the coffee shop? That was our favorite thing, go to the coffee shop in town. They hear music, they dance around a little bit, we get, little goodies, and we go sit outside. That was our thing. So yeah, I'm desperately looking forward to being able to do that.
I think probably normal always changes. It's a relative term, really. I mean, and measured by what life was like before COVID and now, yes, it will not be exactly the same. It probably shouldn't be the same. But what are we looking for? What should it be like? How do we want to live our lives, and how do we want to live as communities, and also practice our various art forms and whatever it is we love to do.